Here, we're talking about why AI systems need evaluation. I know a lot of people that are building AI systems, particularly people in business. That ranges from small scale independent entrepreneurs all the way through startups up to people that are working inside of very large enterprises. Everyone's excited about AI and almost everyone's trying to build with AI. But the biggest mistake that I'm seeing is that almost everyone is forgetting about system evaluation. This is a huge problem because you need a lot more than just a prototype to make an AI system reliable in production. So in this video, I want to talk to you about one of the most important parts of creating reliable AI systems, and that's evaluation. I'll explain why prototypes can be misleading, why AI systems can fail in more ways than you think, and why evals are the foundation of building systems that you can improve systematically. So here, I'm going to walk you through the 4 main reasons why AI evaluation is so important. Let's start with the first one. And this maybe should be obvious, but maybe not so obvious since almost everyone's trying to forget about evals. You need evaluation systems to understand whether or not your AI system is performing to specifications. In earlier videos about the AI engineering process, I talked about the importance of figuring out exactly what problem you're trying to solve and or what task you're trying to accomplish. Connected to that, though, is then measuring system performance after you've built out your system, whether that's a prototype or a hardened AI system. You need some way to measure system performance and you need some metrics. So you need to be able to answer a couple of questions. Does the system actually solve the problem? Does it complete the intended task? Does it meet latency requirements? Does it meet cost requirements? In this case, since we're talking about evaluating system operation, that largely means inference costs. Now, I'm abstracting away a little bit of detail here. In order to answer these questions, you need to have very specific metrics that you're trying to measure and evaluate. So for example, a classification system, you're probably going to be looking at classification accuracy. Other metrics maybe like precision and recall. For AI text generation, it might be a little bit more challenging measuring or evaluating the tone of the output, whether or not it meets brand standards and guidelines. For predictive systems, making, let's say, numerical predictions about the future, there are other types of metrics. So without getting too far into the weeds, you do need to know exactly what metrics you're measuring, whether that's performance metrics, cost, latency, and so on. But you need to measure those things in order to understand whether or not your system is meeting the performance specifications defined early on in the AI engineering process. By the way, if you want to know if you're actually ready to start building and using AI inside of your company, you need to take our AI readiness assessment. You can find the link to our assessment in the description below. Click on the link. It's only about 15 questions. It'll take you about 3 minutes. It's free, and it's going to score you on several key areas that will help you understand your readiness to use AI in your company to create value. Find the link in the description below and take our free AI readiness assessment right now. The second major reason that you need to use AI evaluation is that your system performance can actually change over time. Even if you measure and evaluate your system performance right after you build it and you say, yep, our AI system performs great, that performance can degrade or change in a variety of ways. So first of all, your user inputs can actually change. Let's say you build an AI system that is responding to user inputs and it's built, trained, or optimized to answer particular types of user questions. Well, what if those user questions start to change over time? Your initial system that was optimized maybe for a somewhat narrow set of user inputs or user questions might not be valid anymore because as the user inputs change, the system may no longer be optimized for those inputs. This is a well-studied and fairly well-understood phenomenon in traditional machine learning that we call model drift. And there are different types of drift. One of them, as I just explained, is when the inputs to the system start to change over time, and that can change the ultimate output of the system, the performance. There can also be changes to your system itself. So let's say you build an AI system and it has system prompts, it has a memory system with particular retrieval patterns and particular retrieval logic, and maybe some parameters that set or specify exactly how information is retrieved. Your system might use a particular AI model. Maybe it starts out with ChatGPT 4 and suddenly you upgrade it to ChatGPT 5 or 6 or 7 over time. Maybe your data changes. You have some documents and some data in a database, and maybe that underlying data changes over time. All of those system changes can cause changes in performance. So ultimately, you need evaluation systems that can monitor how your system outputs change as you make changes to your system. I actually just recently talked to a startup. It's about 50 people, probably about 7 to 10 million in annual revenue. And they had some AI features that they had built into their SaaS software. But every single time they changed the underlying model, let's say from ChatGPT 4 to ChatGPT 5, their system performance changed. Same thing with changes to their system prompt. They had a actually quite large system prompt. I'll get into the issues with having too long of a system prompt. They were kind of overloading their system prompt a little bit, but let's set that aside. The issue that they had was that every time they made a change to their system prompt, the performance of the system was changing. Perhaps, though, the bigger problem that they were encountering is that they didn't have an eval system to monitor system performance changes as they made changes to the internals of their system. Ultimately, they needed a way to detect potential system regressions, degradation of system performance, with changes of the internals of the system, and they needed a way of monitoring and evaluating system drift. But even if you can detect performance regressions or system drift, those are actually only a couple of ways that AI systems fail. And that brings us to the third reason that you need evaluations. And that's that AI systems can fail in a variety of ways. So once you get into the details, you've engineered fairly complex AI systems, there's a variety of different failure modes. And you should have seen that in some of my past videos. There are things like hallucination. There are situations where you have a memory system, and maybe your memory system is retrieving some of the wrong context or information. This can go beyond retrieving the wrong information. It can also include failing to retrieve key information, just kind of missing it in the data. If you're building out an agent that can make plans and decide on specific actions, your agents can simply make bad plans. Similarly, when you have an agent or an AI system that has some tool use capabilities, your system can also potentially select the wrong tools. AI systems can also have some operational issues, particularly things like very high latency. The tech startup that I just told you about a couple of minutes ago, they actually had very high latency issues. And then sort of associated with that, AI systems can sometimes just have very high inference costs. Remember, when we are building AI systems and we start running them in production, particularly the LLMs and reasoning models and other machine learning tools that we build into our complete AI systems, we have to run those different AI components. We call that inference, and all that inference costs money. And if you engineer your system kind of incorrectly, you can sometimes have a lot of issues with very high inference costs. So all the things that I just mentioned here, these are a variety of different ways that AI systems can fail, and you need evaluations to be able to detect those things. But detecting failure modes often isn't enough to build really superb AI systems, because ultimately you want to be able to improve your system over time. And that brings us to the next reason that you need AI evaluations. If you want to improve your AI systems, you need evaluation and measurement. So the way that most engineering processes work when you're building an AI system is you typically start with a very simple prototype in very early phases. Once you get confirmation that the prototype kind of works and the basic architecture and design pattern is going to be appropriate, then you start hardening your system. And then over time, you will try to improve the performance on some key metrics, whether that's system accuracy, tone of generated text output, latency, inference costs, and so on. If your inference costs are up here, typically at the management level, they're going to say, hey, can you try and decrease that a little bit? And you're going to try and drive that down. You almost always want lower costs, lower latency, better performance. And the ability to do that is really based on measurement and eval systems. So as you continue to build and refine your system, you need to be able to measure whether or not little changes that you make actually do improve the system. This is, by the way, this was the key to almost all of the highest performing companies of the last 10 years. Companies like Google and Amazon and Netflix, and now currently companies like Tesla that are building, let's say, self-driving. All these companies built quote unquote AI. They were using previous versions of AI. We call those machine learning systems or deep neural networks in many cases. They were building a variety of types of AI systems. And one of the key reasons that each of those companies ended up dominating their industries is that they were really, really good at measuring and testing their systems such that they can improve them over time in ways that decreased cost, improved profitability, improved customer satisfaction so they could improve their customer retention and acquisition, and so on. Almost all of that was done on the basis of eval systems. So you need systems that show whether or not the system changes that you make actually do lead to improvements or regressions, as I talked about previously. You need a repeatable way of making comparisons from one version of a system to the next, and so on. So evaluation systems are critical for creating AI that performs well. But ultimately, eval systems are one part of broader AI architecture. And that's why I recommend that you watch this next video that is on AI architecture. I'll explain all of the components that go into a typical AI system, how those components fit together, and how to start engineering complete AI systems that help you solve your business problems. You can check it out here. AI Architecture Explained.